In this lesson, we're going to look at how to divide rational numbers. Alright, so the first thing we're going to want to do is to define multiplicative inverse and the inverse property of multiplication. The multiplicative inverse is the reciprocal of a non-zero number a is 1 all over a. Because if I've got a, it's the same as a all over 1, and so the inverse is going to be 1 all over a. If I had 5, the multiplicative inverse is going to be 1 all over 5. If I had 3/4, well, the multiplicative inverse is going to be 4 all over 3. All right, so let's take a look at how we can apply that to the inverse property of multiplication. The inverse property of multiplication says that a times 1 all over a is going to give me 1. We're getting back to what it's going to be that's going to cancel out a multiplication problem. All right, so for example, I have a all over 1 times 1 all over a. A times 1 is equal to a. 1 times a is equal to a, giving me 1. Let's take a look at a number. If I had my 5 all over 1 times 1 all over 5, again, I'm going to have 5 times 1 is 5, and 1 times 5 is 5, giving me a 1. Let's take a look at the 3/4. I've got 3 all over 4 times 4 all over 3, which is its inverse. 3 times 4 is equal to 12. 4 times 3 is equal to 12, giving me 1. All right, so let's apply a little bit of what we've learned. Find the multiplicative inverse of the number. All right, the multiplicative inverse of 7 all over 8 is going to be 8 all over 7. The multiplicative inverse of negative 2 is going to be 1 all over 2, or I should say negative 1 all over 2. The multiplicative inverse of 5 all over 7 is going to be 7 all over 5. The multiplicative inverse of negative 8 all over 1 is going to be negative 1 all over 8. The multiplicative inverse of negative 11 all over 14 is going to be negative 14 all over 11. And the multiplicative inverse of 1 is going to be 1 all over 1, equaling 1. All right, so now that we know what the multiplicative inverse is, let's go ahead and see how it applies to the division rule. The division rule states to divide a number is the same thing as multiplying it by its inverse. Well, let's go ahead and take a look at how that applies to the problems below. I have negative 24 divided by 2/3. Well, if I took my negative 24, I'm going to place it all over 1. I'm going to multiply it by its reciprocal, 2/3. So the reciprocal of 2/3 is going to be 3 all over 2. You might remember this in the past years, the KFC. We'd keep the first, which is a negative 24 all over 1. We'd flip, which is the inverse, and then we change the sign from division to multiplication, the KFC. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look then. I'm going to multiply these. I always think it's easier for us to simplify or to cross cancel. So now I've got negative 12 times 3, which is going to give me a negative 36. So negative 24 divided by 2/3 is going to be negative 36. All right, let's do our next one. We're going to multiply it by its reciprocal. Or we're going to keep the first, flip the second, and then I'm going to change the sign. All right, there's nothing for me to cross cancel, so I'm just going to multiply across. 3 times 2 is equal to 6, and 7 times 1 is equal to 7. So 2/3 divided by negative 1/2, oops, I forgot my negative sign, is going to be a negative 6 all over 7. All right, so find the quotient, 27 divided by negative 3. So I'm just going to do this one. I can just take 27 divided by negative 3, which is going to give me a negative 9. Because remember, a negative times, or a positive divided by a negative is going to give me a negative. I could also show it by going 27 all over 1, multiplying it by its inverse of negative 3 is going to be 1 all over 3. And notice how I get 27 all over 3, giving me a negative 9. All right, our next one, we've got 3/8 divided by negative 7 all over 4. 3/8 divided by, which remember is the same thing as multiplying it by its reciprocal, 4 all over 7. All right, I'm going to cross cancel here, giving me 1, giving me a 2. So now I'll multiply across. I've got 3 times negative 1, which is going to be negative 3. 2 times 7, which is 14. So my answer for this one is negative 3 all over 14. All right, our last example here then. I've got a negative 2/3. We're going to keep the first. Remember that we're going to flip or get the inverse or the reciprocal. I'm going to have 1 all over 3 and change the sign. So if I multiply across, a negative times a negative is a positive. So I'm going to have 2 all over 3 times 3, which is 9. So my answer for this one is going to be a positive 2 all over 9. So in this lesson, we took a look at how you can divide rational numbers by multiplying it by its inverse.